Ghost of Tabor. Almaya değer mi değmez mi? VR Tarkov. Yani Virtual Reality Tarkov. Hani bu gözlükleri takıp oynadığın şey var ya, her şey çok gerçekçi.
FPS, PvP and PvE survival game where you will use your wits, skills and resources to survive.
Bu hareketi yapabilmek için kumandayı mı fırlatıyorum böyle havaya? Sonra tekrar tutuyorum.
I took that straight from the Steam page. But seriously, if you haven't heard of Ghost of Tabor,
nasıl yapıyor oğlum böyle şeyleri?
whether you should finally make the decision to buy the game or not,
kumandayı mı atıyor?
to the right video. But first, let's just start off with some of the great things that Tabor is currently doing to stay on top of the VR industry in 2023. So Tabor essentially has the exact concept of Escape from Tarkov, which is a survival shooter where you loot, fight, and extract in order to survive. On top of this, you have an entire bunker to store all of your newfound goodies, and eventually you'll work towards upgrading your bunker in various ways. Now, although this progression hasn't yet been introduced to Tabor,
nasıl yapıyorsun öyle silah tutmayı? Kumandayı mı atıyorsun?
Until we can actually start upgrading our hideout. But in my opinion, the bunker system in Ghost of Tabor is infinitely times better than that of Tarkov. And that's because you're actually there in virtual reality.
Yok abi, eline açıcı silah bırakıyor.
Simply shift left click and all of your gear and your precious items moves right into your stash. This obviously works completely fine for a flat screen title. With Ghost of Tabor, everything you find or purchase will be manually placed by you yourself on shelves and drawers, cabinets, etc. And I think nothing can beat the feeling of having an organized
bulduğun her şey otomatikman direkt böyle şey raflara falan oturuyormuş. Adamın bulduğu susturuculara bak, az önce gösteriyordu. Baba bak. Susturuculara bak.
Put together from scratch, or it can be like some people. I'm not.
Silahı da böyle kendin modluyorsun.
But they just dump all of their shit on the shelves, on the floor, and.
İnanılmaz var ya, bak ben bunu arkadaşlarımla oynasam beni bir saat beklerler hazırlamamışım. Ben sokağa çıkarken de çok yavaş hazırlanırım. Ben burada bir saat geçiririm böyle. 10 saat silahımı yaparım.
Their kiosks, you know, whatever works for you. But I think that's one of the amazing details that just makes this game so enjoyable to play over and over again. Now, obviously, Tabor is nowhere near the level of realism as Tarkov, but it's getting there. The game's only been out for 6 months.
Okay, gerçekçiliği Tarkov kadar gerçekçi değil.
And also keep in mind the dev team at Combat Waffle Studios is pretty small. But let's talk about the gameplay in general. VR gunplay has never felt better than Ghost of Tabor, at least in my opinion. And I love pretty much everything about the weapon handling in this game. It still has its kinks from time to time, but the game's only in early access, so bugs will always be expected. And since the game actually launched in March of 2023, about 6.5 months ago, most of the terrible bugs have been completely fixed, and the game just keeps getting better patch by patch as it continues to evolve into a more polished VR shooter. Now, am I saying the game is perfect and there's no bugs whatsoever? No, absolutely not. There are still a ton of bugs, some of them even game-breaking. You might run into rendering issues or desync, or the worst of them all is the game crashing, especially when you just got so much good loot in one run and the game decides to crash, and all that loot goes bye-bye. So it can be annoying. Tarkov'da
da oluyor ki. Tarkov'da da başımıza bu geliyor. Çok güzel bir tane oyun atıyorsun. Oyundan çıkarken direkt bug oluyor. Ben oyunlarda bug inanılmaz sinirimi bozuyor olması lazım. Yani. Çünkü çok alıştım artık. Yani günde 8 saat Tarkov oynuyor. Her tarafın bug oldu. Çok alıştım.
These are obviously bugs the team is always working to fix. But just know that these bugs do exist. And again, it's in early access, so these things are expected.
Evet.
Back to the topic of the gameplay. Ever since this game first released on the Steam page, it instantly caught my eye. And that's because it's Escape from Tarkov, but VR. It sounds fucking sick. So I instantly bought the game, and I was pretty much blown away from the immersion.
Hiç bilmiyorum bu arada. Ben hiç oynamadım. Yani nasıl yürüyorsun onu da bilmiyorum. Bu tarz bir oyunda.
And I post 3 to 4 times a week on my YouTube channel, completely dedicated to this game.
Hiç hakim olmadığım bir konu. Oğlum adamı sürüklüyor. Bu ne?
I really do see this game just staying on top of the VR industry for years to come.
Tarkov kadar gerçekçi değil dedi az önce videoda. Bu Tarkov'dan çok daha gerçekçi. Eğer öldürdüğüm adamı sürükleyip kenarda lootlayabiliyorsam. Bu çok güzel yani. Valla adamın dediği olay bir kere bile yaşamadım. Denk geliyor demek ki. Analoglarım var, onlarla yürüyorsun. Yani PlayStation joystick gibi bir joystick var böyle parmağımda. Onu böyle ittirdiğimde karakterim ileri doğru gidiyor. Ben de gözlükten ileri gidiyormuşum gibi şey yapıyorum. İstersen evde de yürüyebilirsin tabi ama sonsuza kadar. Yo öyle bir şey istemem yok.
I really hope it continues to advance because seriously no other VR game has the potential that Ghost of Tabor
does. Yanda tuvalete girmek istemiyorum.
Mess anything up, I think this game will be around for a long time. So now let's talk about some of the reasons why Tabor is still nowhere close to perfect. One major thing that kind of went unnoticed by a lot of people was actually the optimization process that they had to go through in order to make the game playable on Quest 2. But this isn't like an onward incident where they completely nuked the graphics of PC in order to make it run better on the Quest 2, because the game actually does have two completely separate builds from PC and Quest, and one looks a lot better than the other, obviously. But because the Quest was running so poorly when the game first came out, they had to optimize the levels a bit, which means they had to take out some of the vegetation, the item scatters, and just overall the level of the levels of
Bunu hiç elime almadım. O yüzden bilmiyorum. Orada gözüm de seçmiyor. Orada ne olduğunu anlayamıyorum yani. Orada nasıl bir tuş var. Böyle bir dokunmatik ekranmış gibi görüyorum ben şu an buradan. Anlayamıyorum ne olduğunu. Bakarız, inceleriz. Fotoğrafına yakından bakarız.
Bit, which means they had to take out some of the vegetation, the item scatters, and just overall the level of detail kind of decreased, but not in a super noticeable way. The game still looks really nice, but some of the level of detail has slightly gone away. If you look at some old videos of the island of Tabor, for example, you can see there's just a lot more trees and bushes and a bunch of other items like that, which really did add to the life of the maps. But you gotta understand, nearly like 80% of the player base of this game is the quest too. So without the quest, this game would be
eğer o gördüğümüz AI ise
worth taking for sure.
Çok kötü bir AI'ydi.
Downsides of the game currently is the crashing problem. So this game does like to crash, typically at the worst times possible. You can go weeks without a single crash, and then all of a sudden you might just lose everything that you just collected in your amazing raid, all because the game wants to crash. The devs are obviously constantly working on this. They've done a pretty good job to combat some of the #1 reasons for crashing on both platforms, but it still happens from time to time.
Ya birazcık geliştirilmesi gerekiyormuş gibi duruyor ama ya.
System that will allow you to rejoin raids that you've disconnected from.
Öldürdüğü adamın kıyafetleri falan yerde duruyordu yani. Bu birazcık sanki bir iki el atmaları lazım gibi.
Much of a problem if you can just get right back in and not lose all of your shit. But besides bugs and crash issues, I have to say overall,
bak nasıl kullanıyor, game zıplatıyor karakteri.
And the future is looking very bright for this game, especially with every couple of months massive new updates.
Bak. Öldürdüğü adamın direkt çantası, armoru falan yere düşüyor. Adamın üzerinden almıyor. Ne kadar ilginç.
For the game, which also comes with a complete wipe, meaning your bunker and trigger levels
will completely
be reset. And to some, this might sound extreme, but I promise this makes everything more fun when everyone starts from ground zero, especially with a bunch of new content to explore. With that being said, the next massive update will introduce the new map, BODYCAM, the mother of all cities. And they also have tons of new implementations planned to make the game more interesting, like the John Wick DLC, gunsmithing, a player market, and even more ways to make money by mining cryptocurrencies or even growing some weed. So the CEO, Scott, has even said the game is basically a battle royale right now. Go in with your kit, you fight to the death, loot, and then you just leave. There's not really any survival elements in the game yet, other than the hunger.
Niye? Escape from Tarkov'un VR versiyonu değil mi bu? Niye sadece öldürüyorum ve oyundan çıkıyorum? Adamı da lootlayayım, loot'unu da çıkarayım dışarıya.
System. With that being said, there's also not a ton of progression offered inside the game, other than just leveling up each item vendors in order to unlock more weapons and gear. The progression aspect is kind of lacking, even though they did just introduce a new XP leveling system. But as of now, the system is kind of pointless as it serves no purpose other than the satisfaction of watching your level go up every time you complete a raid. But eventually these levels will tie
Anladım, sadece level'ın yükseliyor ama başka hiçbir şey olmuyor.
Or also just other rooms around your hideout that you can unlock by reaching higher levels. Once this all comes in the future, the game will hopefully be a lot more fun to grind. Not that it isn't already fun to grind. Even just grabbing items from raids, selling, seeing how much money you can make, and seeing how full you can get your hideout to be is already super fun to begin with. So we just have to give them time for these things to be fully developed. And the team at Combo Waffle Studios is working extremely hard to get this massive updates out on a reasonable time frame.
Peki bir şey soracağım. Bir saniye. Burada mesela hazırlanıyorum ya ben. Arkadaşlarımı çağırıp aynı şeyde, mesela arkadaşımı çağırsam, benim mekana gelse, benim silahlardan desem, otursam oraya desem ki al bak orada güzel bir silah yaptım sana, al. Bunlar oluyor mu? Bunları yapabiliyor muyuz oyun içerisinde? Yoksa herkes kendi mekanında hazırlanıyor, partiye giriyoruz, ondan sonra oyuna gir dediğinde arkadaşına beraber otomatik giriyor musun? Yoksa bu kadarı var mı? Bütün kitini hazırlasam, gelse benim orada taksi susturucuyu, o sırada sohbet muhabbet etsek. Oluyor mu öyle şeyler bu oyunda?
Just have to be patient, but even as a quote-unquote battle royale game, this game is still insanely fun, and the features that are coming in the future will just make it 10 times better. But one of these features that is oddly controversial between the community is the weight system. So basically, if you come to raid with max kitted armor and a bunch of gear loaded into your backpack,
modlarım da yemek yemekle uğraşamam. Gerçek hayatta yemek yemekle uğraşmıyorum.
A lot slower, which seems like a reasonable change because naked people should hypothetically be running faster than a fully kitted juggernaut. But a lot of the community still seems to think that this is the worst idea CWS has had yet, and they just don't want to see it in the game. I think it's a perfectly fine change to punish those who bring their best gear against less kitted players, and I think people are just over-exaggerating it. But let me know what you think down below. But I think people just need to suck it up and understand that the game is going to have more realism elements implemented in the future, because that's always been the vision.
Birazcık şeydi yani, bilmiyorum bu VR oyunlarındaki, yani VR oyunların hepsinden böyle bilmiyorum ama bu yani şey gibi, Night Online'da Moradon'da Tarkov oynuyormuşum gibi şu an bu görüntü. Şu an bu görüntü, ben sanki Moradon'da Tarkov oynuyormuşum gibi yani. Ya bu okey mi? Bu okey değil. Texture atmışlar oğlum. Modelleme bile yok. Şuna bak.
for the game. But anyways, going back to the immersion side of this game, being able to physically loot containers with your hands and then store all of your goods in your hideout or sell all your valuables that you find in raid, it just feels so rewarding, even though the game is lacking in that progression aspect. So although Tabor does have its many flaws, it's an early access VR title that has constantly kept me hooked into VR, which I haven't seen from a VR game in a long time, and I don't expect myself to ever stop playing this game in the future. So back to the main topic of this video, should you buy Ghost of Tabor? I mean, it's $20. It's like 2 meals at McDonald's, and you're getting such a good game for that price. So yes, you should. If you're thinking about getting the game,
just buy it. It's literally $20. You can get all your friends to buy it too, and you can run up some rates together.
Zaman gerekiyor. İyi yayınlar. Teşekkür ederim. İyi seyirler. Kesinlikle gelişmesi için oyuncu kitlesinin birazcık bu tarafa yönelmesi lazım ki oyun firmaları da birazcık bu tarafa gitsin. Oyun firmalarının da birazcık buraya gitmesi lazım ki oyuncu kitlesi gelsin. Yani bu zamana kadar PlayStation ilk yanlış hatırlamıyorsam galiba Nintendo Wii çıktı. Nintendo Wii'den sonra PlayStation 3 PlayStation Move getirdi. Değil mi? Yanlış hatırlıyorsam düzeltin beni. PlayStation Move mesela hiç tutmamıştı. Hiç zerre tutmamıştı. Kamerasını alıyordun, Move şeylerini alıyordun, topçuklar vardı üzerinde. Wii çok daha fazla tutmuştu ama Wii'de de böyle adam akıllı oyun yoktu. PlayStation Move'da birazcık denediler. Ondan sonra bugünlere geldik. Böyle VR oldu işte. Bu VR fena değil, güzel gözüküyor bu alıp oyunu. Ya oyun olarak zevkli de eksikleri çok eksiği var yani. Şu an ilk görüşte, ilk bakışta bile bir sürü eksik söyleyebiliyorum. Hani diğer incelediğimiz oyunlarda bile o kadar eksik yok PC oyunlarında. Birazcık hem oyun firmalarının yatırım yapmasını hem de oyuncu kitlesinin birazcık oraya gitmesini bekleyeceğiz ama onun için de işte gidip ekstra malzeme satın alman gerekiyor. Güzeldi bu. Bu video güzeldi, beğendim.